I don't want to regret it later. A sentiment that arguably all of us carry with us as we go through this thing called life. We wish to live a life where every decision we make will be one we'll want to remember. To live a life where we can be content and look back fondly at the memories we can hold dear. One such is the story of Muse, which is often thought of as a story of success by most people who follow the series. After all, Muse went against all odds and were able to save their school. They were able to grow despite having to start from the ground up. Their story was filled with nothing but success. They won Love Live easily, right? That's all there is to it? The truth of the matter is that the story of Love Live is more than a tale of those who succeed, those who worked together in unity with their school, and those who believed in themselves. The story of Love Live is arguably also a story about regret. In the case of Muse, it is a story about that one statement, I don't want to regret it later. The story of Love Live, along with being a story about hard work, community, and friendship, is also about how we face regret. To begin, I want to first dispel this idea that School Idol Project is simply a story of success. It's easy to think that if you look at the broad perspective of how they went about their story. They form an idol group to save their school, they get popular, they save their school, and then they win Love Live. Classic success story that has its characters start from the bottom and rise to the top, but it's easy to forget the hardship that goes along with the story of School Idol Project, to forget the numerous failures that Muse had that led them to their journey in the first place. The first of those failures, the one that is arguably most notable, is that of Muse's first live. Muse's first live was one where they received little to no support at all. They worked as hard as they could, made costumes together, sung together, and rehearsed together, all in hopes of showing everyone in their school their passion, only for that passion to be received by all but a small group of people. It proved the words of Ayase Ellie correct. They would fail if they pursued this venture. But despite this failure, Honoka didn't view it as such. This performance was that which would set a goal for them. The three members of Muse work as hard as they can so that one day they can perform just like they did with as much passion to a crowd that would fill that auditorium. Rather than be something Honoka would regret, it became something that she would remember as the place where she began. That song they performed that day, Start Dash, was their rallying cry. This was only the beginning, and even though they failed at first, one day they'll be able to fly. But they won't be able to if they don't start to try. However, the person who created the song for them, the one who composed it, still needed some convincing.
I say, hey, 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 start dash. Hey, 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 start dash.
Nishiki no Maki is someone who had her future planned out for her. It was already set in stone that she would go to medical school and eventually take over her family's hospital. Though she was exceptional with her musical talent, she wouldn't need it for that future. So what would the point be in wasting her time singing and dancing if she would just have to give it all up anyway? As such, Maki began as a simple, passionless individual who would put down the notions of the optimistic Honoka. Surely Honoka would fail anyway, right? What point would there be in being a school idol if the possibility of failure exists if she would have to give it all up anyway in just 3 years or less? But as Honoka proclaims to Ellie, as her words resonated with those who lied in that auditorium heard, it became clear. I want to believe in this feeling. It's possible that no one will look our way. We may not receive support, but I still want to work hard and give people what I have. I want to share with them what I feel now. What Honoka felt, what everyone felt in that audience around her, was the feeling of someone who didn't want to regret her decision. What she felt, that passion burning within, wasn't a mistake. It was the best decision she ever made because she believed in that passion, and Maki and everyone else in there sensed that and were compelled by those words. Through her time with Muse, Maki learns to treasure this short amount of time she has left with music, with being with her friends that she loves and enjoying every moment that she spends as a school idol. Though they would face hardships, Though they would fight, they would be memories that Maki cherished deeply. Those days that she dedicated to music would forever be burned into her heart. Those memories as a member of Muse. This is an attitude and a belief that every member of Muse carries with them. Ellie, who wanted to save her school where she found a home but didn't feel like she belonged with those girls whose pure love for school idols radiated outward. Nozomi, who wanted to enjoy something she never had before, friends to call her own. Nico, who finally found out what she cherished for so long, which she could have never achieved on her own. Hanayo, who adored school idols but never had the courage to be one herself. Rin, who saw herself as nothing but a tomboy. Kotori and Umi, who simply followed along Honoka because the path she led them on was so beautiful, how could they not come along? And Honoka, the light that led them all along this path. All of them were school idols because that's what they wanted. That was the decision they made, and they would stick with that decision because they felt it was right. That's the kind of attitude that Muse went onto that stage with, what drew others to them. They were a collection of normal girls who didn't care if the audience was empty or full, who didn't need to follow a trend to be unique, or didn't have even as much of a driving force aside from they want it. They were simply Muse. They wanted to do what they wanted to, so that they would never regret those golden days of their lives. Their mission to win Love Live was that of a desire to have the most fun they could possibly have. They loved being school idols. They loved trying their best. They loved costumes, dancing, singing, bringing joy to those who watched them. They enjoyed being together as the 9 members of Muse.
寒かったよ、怖かったよ。これでおしまいなんて絶対に嫌だったんだよ。みんなで結果を残せるのはこれが最後だし、こんなに頑張ってきたのに何にも残んないなんて悲しいよ。だからありがとう。
And they did it. Against all odds, that group that started with a simple group of 3 who wanted to save their school and enjoy their school life, those 3 who couldn't even fill an auditorium stood there as the voices of an entire stadium called for an encore. These 9 girls with a dream became the hope of all school idols. They became their light, a light that radiated that simple statement, that sentiment. I don't want to regret it later. That sentiment, however, was something they also considered when they left the world of school idols. Their decision was indeed made to allow those to follow after, but it was just as well made in response to that sentiment. Would they regret the decision they made in the future? Surely they wouldn't regret their decision if they could stay together. They could keep being friends, singing together, dancing together, practicing together, shining upon that stage together as the legendary 9. They could. But what would come of that? Their mission was simply to shine with all their might. Their desire was simply to give their all in that short amount of time they had left. It's that lack of time they had together that allowed them to cherish it all the more, because the most precious moments are not the ones that never end, but rather the ones that are so beloved that time passes before you even know it's over. That lack of time, that finality that lies within that decision to end, gave every moment purpose. It gave each second they stood together a weight and a preciousness that would always be carved into their hearts. It gave them the push that they needed simply to pursue a life where they never needed to regret it. All that would remain are cherished memories of a short amount of time that changed their lives. A life and a time without regrets. Now, if the story of Muse is that of living life without ever having to feel regret in the first place, then what would happen if somebody already carried those regrets? What if that failure was so great that those regrets not only carried, but burned deep within, a reminder that would keep bringing itself to the forefront? Unlike the legendary 9, the story of Aqours is a story of those who challenge those regrets that haunt them. As opposed to the members of Muse who for the most part lived wanting not to experience regret with some exceptions, every member of Aqours had a regret that held them down. Watanabe Yo regretted never being able to do something with her friend that she felt like she kept leaving behind. Sakurauchi Riko regretted having to leave behind the piano and give up what she loved. Kunikita Hanamaru regretted spending her life in that library closed off and alone, despite how many times she told her it was alright. Kurosawa Ruby regretted not being able to spend those days with her older sister in being a school idol, while Daya regretted not being able to keep her friendship together. Tsushima Yohane regretted embarrassing herself throughout all of her school life and never being able to act normal. Oh Haramari regretted being the reason that Kanan wasn't able to sing, and Matsuura Cannon was the reason why Mari had to leave. And most importantly, Takami Chika regretted being nothing but herself. Sunshine places a heavy importance on each of these regrets, as it's these regrets that hold each of the characters back. But conversely, it's these regrets that allows these girls to move forward. For in order to find their place, to become more than who they are, in order to find their shine, they first needed to stop looking down and turn their eyes to the blue sky above them. Each of these regrets was a shadow cast upon the members of Aqours, a darkness that prevented them from feeling the warmth of the light, and every single one of them decided to do something. Rather than simply living a life where they wouldn't have to regret it later, they pursued a sentiment that proclaims, "I don't want to regret it anymore." Riko, who turned her back on the wings that gave her flight, became a school idol to give her that passion to return to the stage. Her heart, which was tied down by regret, was cut free through this miracle known as the school idol. Yo, who wanted to be by her friend's side, gained that and so much more through this newfound experience. Hanamaru chose to stop living in a world of secluded fantasy and find a journey on her own as she pursued the title of Love Live Champion alongside her friend that she loved. That friend, who disliked her weakness, was motivated by those beside her to find the power within herself and prove that she was no longer helpless. The fallen angel, who was disgusted with her behavior, was given back her wings by 5 girls who welcomed her and told her that she needed to be no one but herself because that's when she was the brightest. Those 3 friends who were torn apart by their miscommunication and misguided yet well-meaning love for each other were reunited and given a chance to challenge that stage they abandoned long ago because of those hands that reached out to them. They worked as hard as they could, practicing, improving their singing, their dancing, gaining fans along the way. They, like Muse, who they aspired to be, were working as hard as they could to find their shine. They found what they loved to do. And yet despite this, they still lost. All they had to show for these efforts was a regret in the form of a 0.
それで見えたの？何も。何も？何も見えなかった。でもね、だから思った。続けなきゃって。私まだ何も見えてないんだって。先にあるものが何なのか。このまま続けても0なのか、それとも1になるのか、10になるのか。ここでやめたら全部わからないままだって。だから私は続けるよ。スクールアイドル。だってまだ0だもん。0だもん。0なんだよ。あれだけみんなで練習して、みんなで歌を作って、衣装も作って PV も作って、頑張って頑張ってみんなにいい歌聴いてほしいって。スクールアイドルとして輝きたいって。なのに0だったんだよ。悔しいじゃん。差がすごいあるとか昔とは違うとか、そんなのどうでもいい。悔しい。やっぱり私悔しいんだよ。
0. Their efforts, their passion, their love, their friendship only amounted to a 0. 0 votes against numerous groups in Tokyo. 0 prospective students who desired to attend the academy they swore to protect. All that they did ultimately amounted to a 0. In their efforts to face their regrets, they still had yet one more regret they carried with them. They fought this 0 with every force in their body. As their group grew to 9, they challenged the summit of Love Live and didn't proceed to the finals. However, in return, they changed a 0 into a 1. Then they challenged the summit again, finding difficulty in the one member who had yet to face their regret. The one who that 0 most affected. The one who brought these 9 together and told them that they could do it, still carried with them a damaging regret because no matter what, Chika was only normal. She was surrounded by exceptional individuals who outshined her in every way. Every word she told them to inspire them was something she felt she couldn't do. The normal monster was nothing but a helpless, unremarkable girl, and she hated that. She hated that a zero is what would define her. She hated that she may be leading these people who had so much faith in her goal to a destination they would regret. Takumi Chika's greatest regret was herself. And even as she chose to push towards that regret, even as she did the impossible and defeated the obstacle that blocked them before and made it into the finals of Love Live, they still failed. Urano Hoshi would be no more. They couldn't turn that zero into 100, no matter how hard they tried. That zero would forever remain a zero. That regret now casted an even darker shadow than ever before, and it threatened to break the very spirit of those who attempted to challenge it. But you see, the thing about Aqours is that there aren't just 9 of them. There's 10. The final member of Aqours stood before them and showed them the light. Even if Urano Hoshi would be gone, they could still save it. That light would exist in the hearts of everyone who saw the name of Love Live champion. They had a chance once more to challenge that zero. And so they did. As the final day approached, they lived their lives with nothing but passion and love for what they do. Invigorated with new purpose, they came out from the abyss, looked away from the dark, and turned their heads to the shining sky no matter how hopeless it seemed. These final days were precious. That zero, that regret that once held them down, ironically became a source of hope. They would change that zero. They would do the impossible and stand upon that summit because they chose to turn their heads to the light. 0 to 1. And that 1 into something even greater. That zero that crushed them, that regret that they carried wasn't something they needed to hold on to. They didn't have to carry it. They didn't have to be controlled by it. They didn't have to let it define them. They simply had to face it with everything they had. And as they did, the one who regretted it the most stood in the place where it all began. Takumi Chika, who held on to that zero as a reminder of the failure she was, raised it to the sky and let it go. As it flew, all that remained was the view of the blue sky. And they did it. They won Love Live. They forever carved the name of Urano Hoshi Girls Academy into the history of Love Live forever. Their passion spread to everyone who watched as the 10 idols of Aqours shine with all their might. They turned that zero into 1 and that 1 into something even greater. But ultimately they still failed. Urano Hoshi was gone. The memories they had together in their club room, the classrooms, the roof where they practiced, and the stage where the 10 came together would forever remain a memory. They closed the gate to Urano Hoshi for the last time, but they didn't regret it. They may be crying, but they'll never be sad about it, because Urano Hoshi may be a memory, but it never died. It stayed alive in the hearts of all those who its school idols touched. The 10 who dared challenge fate faced that regret and turned it into something beautiful. Through their hard work, their passion, and their love, they created a light that would simply never die. The sentiment that was once "I don't want to regret it anymore" became simply "I don't need to regret it anymore." Because how could they regret these days that gave their lives so much color? A regret that once bound them, set them free. every instance, every moment, another color in that rainbow. Thank you for watching yet again another pretentious video by yours truly, WattheWut. This is the second part in the Love Life series, and as you could tell, it took quite a while for it to come out. It's nowhere near as bad as my upload schedule used to be. But thank you guys for watching. I would like to now thank my patrons, namely people like Flutterrod Butt, the Pretentious One, and Chaz Mix. If you want some more updates on how things are going with the projects and such, I update it pretty frequently on my Discord, which you can see below in the description. If you pledge to my Patreon and any of the tiers, you get a special role where I talk to you guys about all that jazz and all the videos that are coming out. And if you don't want to be a slave and donate to a Patreon and forever, you can, I just established a coffee. I have no idea what it is. I guess it's like a tip jar. So it's like the difference between a one-night stand and a goddamn marriage. So take with that what you will. Thank you guys. I'll see you next time. Goodbye.